All right. I'm just a kid from Scarborough that went through a bit of a roller coaster, so hopefully you can get one or two things from this. Can you just advance the next slide? That's where I'm from. I'm very proud of it. Next slide. My company was called Policy Medical. It was born out of a time of solitude. I actually self-imposed in my 20s 10 months of solitude. I went into solitude because I really wanted to find out what the hell am I supposed to do with my life to make a meaningful impact for the next 10, 15 years or so. I came out of that with a deep desire to impact people's health and do something in healthcare. That manifested itself into a healthcare technology regulatory compliance company. Super sexy opening line. But that was my Simon Sinek why. This is me in my mom's basement. Yes, it's true, that was the office for many years. That's my niece and nephew who are now in university. So that's how long I ran the company. My mom really sheltered us, took care of us, and fed us. And we had many, many challenges. You can go to the next slide, Maggie. Our challenges amounted to how do we sell into the United States? We had no idea how to sell into the United States because on University Avenue here, the doors got closed. So we decided to only cold call, because back then there was no inbound marketing, only cold called hospitals we could physically drive to because we did not have enough money to get a plane ticket. We also had to figure out hiring. We didn't hire. We did the job ourselves for many, many years. And then when we actually had to hire, we would only hire when we experienced some acute pain in that specific area. Next slide. Eventually, we got super duper lazy. That came from us having a little too much success in the early years, and we became really, really complacent. I had to actually gut check to figure out if I wanted to be in this business in the first place. And I decided I did. I was able to reconnect with that mission that I found in my time of solitude. One of the things that really helped me out a lot were my mentors. I actually had a pretty specific mentor formula I did to find the right mentors. I can share with you later, but they helped me immensely. And the other thing that really helped me a lot was, I guess, what I call my moleskin experiment. I actually took a moleskin notebook, many of them, and then I flew to every single client that I had. They were all hospitals. I sat across from the CEOs usually, and I said, what do I need to do to the product and to our customer service to make this truly, truly indispensable? I wrote it all down, and that became the foundation for rebuilding the company. Next slide. The rebuild took 6 years. 3 phases in total, 2 years each. For those youngins out there that are starting something up, I would say don't think 24 to 36 months. Hunker down in your mind for 5 to 10 years. Because if you're not willing to do that mentally, maybe you need to mentally pivot to something else or do something else. So the first 2 years, we focused on product. I needed to rebuild the product from scratch. We were on-premise, co-located. There was something new called AWS we decided to try, which is pretty common now. That was a big deal. That took 2 years. Second was building out a customer success team. I wanted to wow our customers. We didn't have a lot of churn, but they really didn't love us a whole lot. So it took us 2 years to put in the right processes and systems in place in order to get that done. And then finally was the creation of what we called a revenue generation team. That was the integration of client success, inbound content marketing, and outbound sales, really getting them all to work together to drive exponential revenue. Next slide. Throughout all of that, it sounded really great, but I struggled from a lot of identity issues. I don't mean multiple personalities, but I mean one mistake that I did was I superimposed the business identity onto who I really am. I started off telling you that I'm a kid from Scarborough originally, because that's what I am at my core. But over the ride of 17 and a half years, when the business was riding high and really, really succeeding, I would mistakenly feel like a king. When it would not be doing too well, I would feel like a complete failure. This up and down is something that I see a lot across the tech sector. And hopefully, it needs to stop, and we need to understand that we all struggle with it and remind ourselves. My mentor, Pulin Chandaria, he told me something at that time when things were really tough. He told me that business is nothing more than a tool to teach you about who you really are, to teach you about your nature. That's it. Don't make it bigger than that. Next slide, please. That's me, believe it or not. Last year, I had a beard. That beard grew over the entire due diligence exit process. Exiting a tech company sucks. It's really, really hard. Nobody told me the internal and external potholes that would come to pass. So I needed to save time. I just stopped shaving because I needed to save as much time as possible. But some of the good things that we did to prepare for the exit because of some of our Silicon Valley partners in the company, and by the way, I think I mentioned, we bootstrapped the whole thing, so there were no outside investors or anything else like that. But we did all of the things that, in retrospect, we were supposed to do. We had a nice clean data room. Our CRM is relatively clean. We had several years of audited financial statements. There are different criteria that you will be judged on upon the exit. And we had a lot of those in place ahead of time. And one thing that I did was, I write a lot, so to myself. I wrote down on a piece of paper my 1 to 3 walk-away criteria. The 1 to 3 things that, if I didn't get it, I don't care, I'm walking. Because I didn't need to sell. I kind of wanted to sell, but I didn't have to. And people internally, my own advisors, accountants, lawyers, et cetera, at times they would say, you know what, Saud? That's normal, that's the norm, what they're asking. I would say, I don't care. It's like on this paper. It's my 1 to 3 walk-away criteria. So I would say stick to that, and hopefully it kind of works out for you. Next slide. Finally, these days, what am I up to? Spend a lot of time with my family. We've got 4 little kids, so they keep me quite busy. I've started coaching and mentoring and doing a little bit of investing in the health tech sector. And in closing, this is my first talk actually in a year. I took a year off. My wife and a friend of mine told me, after you exit, which is almost exactly a year ago, take a year off. And the friend that told me that, he said, he's done this like 12 times. He said, sometime in that first year, you move from a human doing to a human being. And that was me. For the first 6 months, I would wake up and, after I transitioned out, I didn't have corporate email anymore, so I'd go to my personal Gmail account. Nobody emails me anyways. I'd just be like checking to see if any messages came in. So it took me a good 6 months to go from that human doing to an actual human being. But one of the things I reflected on over the past year, and I think founders and people that exit, and if it's a good outcome, they never stop to actually acknowledge the people that were not in the boardroom that contributed 50% or more to the whole thing. So it makes me a bit emotional, but my wife and my kids, they were there for the whole, pretty much over half the time. So she was never in the boardroom, but it would be literally impossible to execute what we were able to execute without her being the partner as well. So thank you for listening. Any questions? I'm all game.
Any questions? Okay. One question back there. Okay.
I'm just curious, was your wife involved in the company or was she supporting you?
No, she wasn't involved at all. One of my philosophies in business is I don't mix the red and the green, blood and money. So she wasn't involved.
Thank you so much, Saud.
Thank you.